Welcome to another edition of Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy. It is CFL Week 16 for this edition of the show. Ian Cameron with you. Back to 4 games and a full schedule this week in the CFL with just one team on bye week, and that is the BC Lions. And they need the bye week after the way they played last week against the Toronto Argonauts. But a 4-game schedule this week, once again in Week 16, as we continue along. It's been a very good, profitable overall CFL season. Bit of an up-and-down week last week. We had a few winners, few losers, pretty much even for the week, but still overall for the season. And for the last month, it's been a phenomenal stretch for me in the CFL. We're 3 units of profit on the season overall, which is good. That's $3,000 if you equate it to the dollar amount that I bet. So very, very solid season, profitable overall, and we'll look to keep it going this week. But before we get into the 4 games this week, I do want to bring up some promotional stuff. We're going to start with Dub Club. That is the only place where you can subscribe and get every bet that I make in every sport, every single day. And that is the place, So Bet. I also want to point out in regards to So Bet that right now we have a couple of discount offers. For the celebration of the new NFL season, 1 month all sports is discounted to $50 from the regular price of $75. Again, this particular subscription discount, 1 month all sports, $75, discounted to $50. That's $25 off. It's only in effect until the end of September. All right, so if you want to try out 1 month in all sports for just $50, now is the time to do it. And again, that offer exists until the end of the month. Currently, 3 months all sports, $200, the same regular price. 6 months all sports, $400, the regular price. But starting today, 1 year all sports at Dub Club, which right now would be a September to September subscription, September 2024 to September 2025. So basically, you're getting a full calendar year, an entire NHL season, an entire NBA and college basketball season, the rest of NFL, college football, and CFL plus MLB, NBA and college basketball full season. You are getting all of it coming up. 1 year, all sports, $600. That is a $150 off price. The regular price is $750. And again, with NHL training camps opening, I decided we're going to do a 1 year all sports subscription, especially because I get a lot of people every year that sign up and subscribe with me just for hockey. Even though I think you should be subscribed to all the sports, but I know hockey is one of my strengths. It's one of my strongest sports. It's what a lot of people know me for, and I'm famous for because of the Ice Guys show, of course. And that's why they choose, especially when hockey season starts, to pick that time to sign up and subscribe. So with the NHL season around the corner, I decided let's reduce the 1 year all sports subscription from $750 down to $600, $150 off the regular price. And this discount offer is in effect from now until the opening night, the North American opening night of the NHL season on October the 8th. So again, make sure you sign up, you subscribe. Again, until opening night, October the 8th, this discount is in effect. It's one of the best deals you'll get because it's 1 full year, all sports, every bet, sides, totals, player props. And as far as hockey goes, that's the sport I bet the most player props, 100%. Football's a close second, but hockey is probably number 1 when it comes to player props, as well as the success rate I have with player props. So you get much more than you get your bang for your buck and then some, is what I'm trying to say. If you subscribe to this option, 1 year all sports, $600. The link with the coupon code for that is at the bottom there, or you could click on the link that I posted on Twitter X at Bobano Bets for the 1 year all sports discount, $750 down to $600 for 1 year all sports now through October 8th, the opening night of the NHL season. Again, over 9 units of profit, NFL and college football last year and this year combined. 18 units of profit, $18,000 profit in the NHL the last 2 seasons combined. I will say the majority of that profit was 2 years ago, where I was up over 16 units. Last year, I was only 1.8 units, but it was profitable. A winning season, which is always the goal. And in the last 2 seasons combined, 18 units of profit in the NHL the last 2 seasons combined. So again, 1 year all sports, $600, down from the $750 regular price, and that offer is in effect now through to October 8th, the North American opening night of the NHL season. Make sure you get on board with that. If you're looking for a low volume, best bets only approach, then SoBet is the option for you. You can sign up now at SoBet. There's the link on the screen. It's also on my Twitter X account. $9.95 per month for best bets only. So at Dub Club, you get every single wager. At SoBet, you only get the best bets. I isolate the card down to just a handful of my best bets each day in all sports. And the current run at SoBet is solid. 94 and 79, 54%, 4.8% return on investment, and plus 1.6 units of profit with best bets, all sports, last 30 days at SoBet. And again, it's just a long-term approach, long-term profits, and trying to give you the best of the best wagers on the betting board in all sports every single day. So that's $9.95 per month for that at SoBet. Make sure you check that out. And last but not least, we do want to mention, of course, the crypto sports book that I have been using, and I want to implore how much I think you want to be able to use that. It is BitWallet. I've been impressed with BitWallet. It is a great sports book for those of you that have access to cryptocurrency. Bitwallet.bet. The affiliate link is there on the screen, bitwallet.bet/affiliate/Ian. Make sure you punch in that link, sign up for a brand new BitWallet account, and if you do that, you will be eligible for a 50% deposit bonus on each of your first 3 deposits at bitwallet.bet. Live casino dealers for casino games, same game parlay, live betting, tons of live wagering options. It's a great live betting book, all the major pregame options in all sports. If you have crypto at your disposal, put some of it into bitwallet.bet. You won't be disappointed. It's a great crypto sports book and casino. Bitwallet.bet. Again, click the link, sign up for an account at bitwallet.bet/affiliate/Ian, and you'll be eligible for a 50% deposit bonus on each of your first 3 crypto deposits at BitWallet. All right, let's get into the CFL Week 16. We begin, of course, with the team that's on a bye week, the BC Lions. And look, that was definitely a good performance by Toronto. We don't want to take everything away from them, or take anything away from them. Chad Kelly, much better. No interceptions, I think, was the best part of his game against BC, where he has been a turnover machine lately. Ball security was there for him. He didn't make any mistakes, didn't throw any interceptions. He ran with the football when he was able to. And the defense stepped up for the Toronto Argonauts, no question. Nathan Rourke had a bad first half. The offensive line was awful. That's probably the worst the BC offensive line has played in weeks. They couldn't open up holes for the run game. Couldn't protect Nathan Rourke. I was very puzzled by the decision by Rick Campbell to change quarterbacks at halftime and go to Vernon Adams Jr., even though I could, you could want to get Vernon Adams in at some point, but it was just a weird time, I think, for him to do that. And it wasn't any better with Vernon Adams. And it's not all Vernon's fault, just like it wasn't all Nathan Rourke's fault. That offensive line just wasn't very good at all against Toronto. There was no ability to find open receivers down the field because the pass protection was not holding up whatsoever for the Lions. They didn't establish William Stanback at all on the ground. And then, of course, when they got behind in the second half, they had to be one-dimensional and throw the football, and the Toronto Argonauts were ready for that. Bottom line is Toronto outplayed them and kicked their ass. And they played well, but that was, to me as well, a big part of it to me was BC starting to roll along again. They had a couple of really good performances in a row. A massive win on the road against the defending Grey Cup champion Montreal Alouettes before last week, and they were flat as a pancake. I think that was a big part of it, too. You just did not see any energy, any zest in the performance from the BC Lions. They were just listless, flat, lethargic right from the opening kickoff last week against the Toronto Argos, and they paid the price for it. Not a good way to go into their bye week, 33-17, dampening what had been a pretty solid run for BC the last few games. And it's a costly loss. That's why it's not, sometimes you pay the price when you're not prepared to play, and they were not prepared to play last week against Toronto, because now they relinquish that tie for first place in the West Division with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Winnipeg goes, a half a game ahead of BC. BC falls to second in the division, and keep in mind too that with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and the BC Lions. As far as the tiebreaker goes, I'm pretty sure BC has lost the season series as well against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Let me just double check on that. Yeah, I mean, they're 1-2 against the Bombers this year, so that's the problem here for BC. If you end up tied with Winnipeg at the end of the regular season, you're going to end up in a situation where you're not going to get the spot ahead of Winnipeg because they win the tiebreaker. So that's the disappointing part, based on Winnipeg going 2-1 against BC in the season series. So when you look at it, it's a costly loss for BC. Very interesting to see how they come out of that loss next week when they take the field once again following the bye week. I believe they play Calgary after the bye week. Let me just make sure I've got that right, BC, as far as who they play next. Yes, Calgary at home after the bye week next week for the BC Lions. So we'll see if they are able to bounce back there in that game following a disappointing effort coming out of the going into their bye week, I should say, against the Toronto Argonauts. And a great segue. So our first game for CFL Week 16 on Friday night is the Toronto Argonauts facing my Hamilton Tiger Cats. The Battle of the QEW reignited and on for the final time this season, final regular season meeting between these two teams. The Ticats 2-0 against the Argos, straight up and against the spread, although both of those games were at Tim Hortons Field in the Donut Box. This time, for the first time this year, these teams play each other at BMO Field in Toronto. We got the Argos 6.5-point home favorites, 53.5 the total in this game. Toronto needed a win in the worst way against BC, and they got it. It had been a rough stretch for the Toronto Argos, bad losses to Ottawa and Hamilton prior to bouncing back against the BC Lions. And look, Chad Kelly mitigated the mistakes, mitigated the turnovers. That was huge for them going into that BC game, and he did that. He played an efficient game, moved the football, punched it in for touchdowns, and this time around, he avoided the mistakes. So I think when you look at the situation here for the Toronto Argonauts, they needed that win. They got it. Although I will say this again about Toronto, I thought part of that last week was BC being flat, not playing a very good football game, not being at their best. But you do have to give the Argos credit for that. Now they return home, where they have a much better home record than they do on the road. That was only the second road win, too, of the season for the BC Lions. Now they're back home. They're 5-1 straight up at home. Although there is something you want to point out, too, about this home record of theirs. 2 of the last 3 wins were nail-biters. They won by a single point against Saskatchewan. They only won by 2 points against Winnipeg. The one game they won by margin at home was Calgary, 39-25. But even though they have that 5-1 straight-up record, you're laying 6.5 here. You got to win by margin. You got to win by a touchdown or more if you're going to cover this number here against the Hamilton Ticats. Tough to step in front of the Ticats right now. 3-0 against the spread since, and I think this is the key link to why Hamilton's been a little bit better the last 3 weeks. The defense has been better. They're not a great defense yet. They probably never will be, at least not this season. But they're stepping up. They're getting off the field in key moments of the game on second down, getting to stops on that side of the ball. And more importantly, for more than half the season, Hamilton was a team that was coughing up the football, turning it over left and right, and not forcing any turnovers. Now it's kind of gone the other way. They're not committing as many turnovers themselves, and they're forcing a ton. This has become a ball hawking, take the ball away defense the last few weeks. And you have to give Chris Jones, the new defensive coordinator, a decent amount of credit for that, because this is the kind of shit we were not seeing from the Ticat defense early in the season. Now the question is going to be, can they keep that going? Bo Levi Mitchell has had 2 very good games in the passing game in a row for the Hamilton Ticats against Ottawa last week. 20 of 27, very efficient, almost 300 yards, 2 touchdowns. Did have 1 interception. I don't think it was totally his fault, though. And then the game before that against the Argos, he was spotless, 20 of 30, 347 through the air, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. So it's been a good 2 weeks for Bo. It's been a good 2 weeks for the offense. I've been impressed with Greg Bell at the running back spot. Stephen Dunbar Jr., Shamar Bridges, Keandre Smith, Tim White. They've all been good in the passing game. There are some injuries of note for Hamilton going into this game. Jonathan Moxey is a hamstring injury for him. Trevon Mason on the D-line is not practiced this week. It looks like Casey Sales, abdominal injury on the defensive line. He may not play. He hasn't practiced yet this week either. And I just talked about how good Greg Bell has been. Well, he's got an Achilles issue. He practiced Monday. He did not practice yesterday. And so they say his status is now more up in the air. But you do have James Butler waiting in the wings, and he would be the running back here for the Ticats, obviously, if Greg Bell doesn't play. This is an interesting game because first of all, at this number, it's a lean to Hamilton for me, but I'm not bullish on it. I'm not bullish on it. The Argos got right last week against BC. They are back home. They've won 5 of 6 home games. They know they've lost 2 straight already to Hamilton this year. They know they want to stop the bleeding here. And another thing, too, is if they lose this game and fall to 7-7, suddenly Hamilton's 5-9 and knocking on the door of maybe still catching the Argos, especially when you factor in they will have swept. Well, they've already won the season series, so they already hold the tiebreaker over the Argos. But if they go 3-0 against Toronto this year, they're all of a sudden, it's not without the realm, it's within the realm of possibility all of a sudden that the Ticats could track down the Argos with still several games left in the regular season. So this is a huge game to really put some distance again between themselves and the Ticats for this Toronto team, a team they haven't beaten yet this year. And they'll be motivated, the Argos, certainly to do that. So we'll see how it goes here. Another concerning thing for me is the last few times Hamilton's gone to Toronto, it's not been pretty. You go back to August 2022. Hamilton's played here at BMO 4 times. Toronto 4-0 straight up, 4-0 against the spread, 34-20, 37-20, 32-14, 29-14. They're all double-digit wins. I don't know. To me, Hamilton, I don't go against teams that are on a point spread streak, and we'll get to that with Edmonton in just a bit, who are on one themselves. But I'm not running to back Hamilton in this spot. So right now, for me, this is a game I have very little strong opinion on. There is a 7 at DraftKings. I mean, I might sprinkle on Hamilton small at +7, but I don't feel as good about it as I've felt the last few games with the Ticats. I mean, I could only play over in this game. Chad Kelly and the Argos offense is really good. Hamilton's offense is clicking. The defense is better, but it's not better to the point where all of a sudden they're shutting teams down. No, they're still giving up points, Hamilton, but they've been taking the ball away, and that's been different. And that's a key to the over, too. If the over is going to benefit in this game from Hamilton getting those takeaways, because it's going to set up the offense in good field position more often than not. So that's good news for the over. So I lean Ticats, I lean over. Do I like either one? Do I love either one? I should say no. That would be the answer here in this game. All right, next up, Saskatchewan and Calgary. We have the Saskatchewan Roughriders, 2.5-point road favorites, 51 the total in this game on Friday night. Friday night football tonight. So if you remember what I said last week about Saskatchewan on their bye week, I said there's going to be no better opportunity for the Saskatchewan Roughriders to end this dreadful 0-6-1 streak in their last 7 games, 6 losses and 1 tie, winless in their last 7 games. There's going to be no better time to snap it than this spot here, out of a bye week against a bottom feeder. And they are still a bottom feeder, bottom tier team in the league right now, in my opinion, Calgary. I know they put up a fight against Montreal, the mighty Grey Cup champs last week. It was 19-19. That was more Montreal stunk. And Montreal was like BC, flat, listless, just not playing inspired football, going through the motions. And Calgary kind of took advantage of that a little bit, and yet they still couldn't win the game. And at the time when they needed to put up points and win that football game, Jake Mayer couldn't do it. Now, he played a lot better. He did. Let's give him credit for that. 29-37, 236 through the air. But all of a sudden, this Montreal defense hasn't been as good the last couple of weeks. Like I said, I don't think Montreal was focused on that game like they should have been, taking the road to play Calgary. Calgary, and I said this last week too, and that's why I stayed off that game entirely from a side perspective. I said there's going to be money to be made betting against Montreal because they're kind of coasting down the stretch. They know they're probably going to win the East Division, although that's contingent upon them probably putting the dagger through the hearts of Ottawa when they play the Red Blacks this weekend. Because I think if Montreal beats Ottawa this weekend, that's pretty much it for the division. That will wrap it up for them pretty much. But they still should win the division. You see elements of this team coasting. The bottom line, they barely beat Edmonton. They had a bad start. They get blown out at home by BC. They go through the motions last week against a struggling Calgary Stampeders team. Bottom line is that's exactly why I didn't want to lay the 5.5, 6 with Montreal last week. But I didn't want any part of Calgary either. But if you did take Calgary, you did trust them. They got you the money last week. But now they're in a spot where they got to almost win the game because they're only getting 2 points here in this game against Saskatchewan. I still think Saskatchewan's the better football team. Maybe it was smoke and mirrors the beginning of the season with the way this team played because, they played a struggling Winnipeg team at the time. They had some wins against Edmonton, some wins against Hamilton when Hamilton wasn't. I get all that. So maybe they feasted on playing the right team at the right time. But I think they're so much better than what their record is not indicative of them as a football team. And when you look at their recent losses, I mean, they've been right there. I said this last week about Saskatchewan. They've been right there in every single game, a play here and a play there in many of these games. And instead of 5-7, we're 5-7-1, we're talking 7-5-1. And a totally different outlook on the season for Saskatchewan. Hell, they'd be leading the fucking West Division right now if they were 7-5-1. All that was required for Saskatchewan was some of these games to break right for them. A play here and a play there. I think there's a better football team than their record indicates. Let's look at these losses. 4-point loss at Montreal. Could have won that game. Probably should have won it because they had a lead and Davis Alexander rescued them. 42-31, that was against Trey Ford. And we know what an incredible quarterback he might be in this league. And they had to face him making his first start. And the Elks rallied around that big time. The Ottawa game, 22-22, it was there for the taking. 27-24 home loss against Montreal. I thought they were better than Montreal in that game. They outgained them. Trevor Harris had a very good game. Brett Lawther missed a bunch of field goals. One of them was returned for a touchdown. That was the difference. Brett Lawther's horrible night kicking the football cost Saskatchewan dearly in that game. They probably should have beat Montreal at home in that game. 1-point loss at Toronto, winnable game. They lose on a last-second rouge. The Winnipeg game at home, 35-33. Play here and a play there, they win that game instead of lose it. Same thing with the rematch in the Banjo Bowl before their bye week. It went 26-21. A play here and a play there, they win that game. If there's a game where they're finally going to make that one play instead of not make it, to win a football game, it's against this lowly Calgary team. So I like Saskatchewan here. Anything less than a field goal, it's Riders or nothing for me. I still don't want anything to do with Calgary. I don't think they're that good. I think that Corey May. I actually liked what's happened in Saskatchewan leading up to this game with Corey May stopping practice yesterday, getting mad, sending them into the locker room for a little tirade, then bringing them back out there to finish practice. They have the look of a focused, angry, intense football team coming out of their bye week, looking to stop the bleeding, get off the schneid, get back in the win column, and they got the ideal opponent, in my opinion, to accomplish that. So I like Saskatchewan here less. This is the weekend, I think. It better be the week. It has to be the week, and it better be the week. That's all I'm going to say, because after this, you got Ottawa at home, no gimme. At Edmonton, a totally resurgent Elks team, and you already lost to them once. And then you got BC at home. None of those games are easy. And knowing Saskatchewan and how they play close games, this probably won't be easy for them either, but this is still a Calgary team. They don't do it for me. As simple as that. I think their defense is awful. It was better last week against Montreal, but I got to see that again. It was a horrible defense. Couldn't stop a nosebleed for weeks prior to that Montreal game. Don't trust Jake Mayer in a close game in a big spot, and he showed it again last week against Montreal. This is Saskatchewan's chance to show that, hey, we should have won some of these recent games that we lost and just barely came up short. So I like the Riders here laying less than a field goal on the road. Total, I'm neutral on. Um, 51. I'll say this, though. Saskatchewan's second halves have been money to the over, money in the bank. Saskatchewan's been a huge second half over team. I could see this game actually starting off slowly and then bet it live at halftime. And that might be the approach I take as far as the total here in this game with the Rough Riders and the Stampeders heading into it. All right, next up, as we continue along here, we've got Saturday's action, 2 games on Saturday. This is your CTV national TV game exclusive to CTV. Montreal, Ottawa, top 2 teams in the East Division squaring off. Montreal 2.5-point road favorites, 49.5, 50 the total here in this game. You look at this matchup here. Montreal, they haven't been very good the last couple of weeks. So flat out, they've been kind of going, like I said, going through the motions, not looking like they play capable of playing 4 great quarters of football right now. That would be the concern for me. However, if there's one game that gets Montreal all stirred up to play a strong, complete 4 quarters of football, this could be it. Because they know, especially after a frustrating bad loss against BC, got blown out at home, frustrating tie last week against Calgary, they know still that they control their own destiny as far as the East Division goes. And if they win this game, they pretty much put the division to bed. You can pretty much, without making it 100% official, you could pretty much say Montreal are your East Division champions if they win this game. Because Ottawa, I think at that point, will not be able to catch them. They will have lost the season series to Montreal because they already lost in Montreal early in the season. So if Ottawa loses this game too, they lose the head-to-head series and the tiebreaker to the Alouettes as well. So Montreal can essentially become the East Division champions with a win here. So you got to think this game has their attention, and this Ottawa Red Blacks team has their attention here after 2 lethargic performances the last 2 games. That being said, BC, or Ottawa rather, is coming off just a dreadful game against my Ticats. Dreadful on defense. Couldn't stop Bo Levi Mitchell in the passing game. Couldn't stop the run either. 37-21. And you talk about impact injuries, and you always have to look at the injury report. Darius Pickett is an impact injury. Season over, Achilles injury. One of the glue guys and one of the, stalwarts on that Red Blacks defense. You want to know why the Red Blacks have improved on the defensive side of the football this season? Darius Pickett's been a big part of it. And now you're not going to have him on the football field the rest of this. That's a huge loss on defense for the Ottawa Red Blacks moving forward. So it'll be fascinating to see how they perform without him because that is definitely a hole in their defense that they're going to feel. Cody Fajardo, what's happened to him? I think he's been lackluster the last 2 weeks. Last week, the numbers aren't terrible. They're just underwhelming. Only 204 passing yards, 19 of 26. That was concerning. Look, for Montreal, too, another thing you want to throw in there is a couple of fumbles. That didn't help their cause either in that game. But their defense, uncharacteristically, against a very weak quarterback, weak offense, didn't look great. And that's 2 weeks in a row. Noel Thorpe's defense has been kind of chewed up and spit out by the opponent. The BC game last week, and even Calgary was moving the football pretty well against them for most of that game. So we'll see if Montreal can step things up on defense. You look at the Ottawa offense, and it wasn't the best game for Drew Brown. We'll see if Drew Brown actually got replaced by Jeremiah Masoli at the end of the Hamilton game. I don't think there's a controversy. I think Drew Brown's still the guy. I think they just figured, you know what, we were down big. We weren't going to come back. Let's give Drew Brown a rest, put Jeremiah in there to finish the game. At this number, I'll be honest, I'm neutral on the side. I feel like this is Montreal's spot to step up and win and put the division to bed. They're only laying less than a field goal. I think I can see them winning it, but I'm not going against Ottawa at home, period. I'm not. 6-0-1 straight up here at TD Place at home this year, Ottawa. They've been a phenomenal home team. This game for them, if they have any inkling of catching Montreal for first in the division, they have to have this game. They have to win it. They've been great at home. They've played their best football all year at home, the Ottawa Red Blacks. And Montreal is not playing now like they did in June or early July or even early August. They're not playing that way right now. And so if Ottawa bounces back, corrects the mistakes of last week, and there were plenty of mistakes for Ottawa in that game. They lost a couple of fumbles. Drew Brown threw an interception. Masoli threw 2. It was just turnovers galore. 3 interceptions from the 2 quarterbacks and 2 lost fumbles. So 5 times they put the ball on the ground, or 5 times they turned it over against Hamilton. You're going to have a difficult time winning any football games that way. But I think they'll play a lot better here, and they've been great at home. So if you made me choose, I'd take Ottawa, but it would be just a lukewarm opinion there. I think I would play over in this game. I look at Ottawa's defense as not just a little bit weaker, but maybe a lot weaker without a Darius Pickett. He is a terrific player, and that defense, especially against the pass, they're going to feel his absence. That's no doubt about that. And when you look at Montreal too, I think another thing you have to factor into why that offense looked a little bit sluggish, even against a struggling Calgary defense last week. They were bringing in 2 returning receivers from injury, and Keon Julian Grant and Tyler Sneed. Sometimes it takes just a game to get the new look receiving core together, and I think this is what they've got moving forward with receivers. Keon Julian Grant, Tyler Sneed, who both came back last week, Charleston Rambo, Reggie White Jr., Cole Speaker. That's going to be your receivers moving forward, because Austin Mack's out for the year. Tyson Philpott's out for the year. So you're not going to see any of those guys back for Montreal. So I think now there's going to be a lot more chemistry and continuity now with that group together once again for a second straight game. That should help them against this Ottawa defense. But I think Ottawa can move the football here too, because look, Montreal's defense the last 2 weeks, it has not been the stifling Alouette defense we've seen the last large part of the season. First meeting is 68 points, 47-21. So I like over 49.5. That's what I like the most in this game rather than a side. But at 2.5 as home dogs for a team that's 6-0-1 straight up at home, and now they're a 2.5-point home underdog. For that reason, I lean Ottawa. All right, the final game of Week 16, Winnipeg and Edmonton. We got the Blue Bombers, 2-point road favorites, 49.5 the total in this game. I definitely feel odds makers are making the adjustment a little bit to Edmonton and how well they're playing and this torrid run that they're on, because I'll be honest, I was hoping for a little bit more than just getting 2.5 points with Edmonton. I was hoping to get 3.5, even 4 with them in this game, but it's not happening. That being said, I'll be damned if I'm stepping in front of Edmonton. No way am I doing that. 5-1 straight up, 6-0 against the spread their last 6 games. They're playing great football. They've rallied around the new the interim coach, Jarius Jackson, who's probably, if he keeps this up, on his way to becoming the permanent head coach after this season. They played great on offense for sure. And you got to give McLeod Bethel Thompson a lot of credit, because he's the one that started most of these games, and he played very well. He shredded Calgary in the back-to-back against the Stampeders. Even in the game against Montreal, he had a great first half. Second half, he got shut down by the Alouettes, and they lost, but still a solid performance. And then he had the good games before that. Does the chemistry get disrupted with Trey Ford now being the starting quarterback? Because Jarius Jackson didn't hesitate. Way before the bye week started, he said, Trey Ford's, now that he's healthy, he's going to be our starter here. And I still think long-term, Trey Ford's the guy, and he's better than McLeod. But McLeod did okay. And do you throw off a little bit of the good vibes and the karma and the continuity and the rhythm and the chemistry you have going to Trey Ford at this time? It's a legit question. But I don't worry about his talent and his ability. He does still have to work on standing in the pocket and throwing an accurate football. I think that's still an area where he can improve. We know throwing on the run, he's deadly accurate. We know his ability to run down the field when the pocket collapses is unbelievable. And he's got that incredible skill set to work with. But there are still some elements of his game he's got to work with, and it's not going to be easy against this Winnipeg team that, as we know, they have turned their season around since the beginning of July. This team is 7-2 straight up in their last 9 games. Now, on the road is still a bit of a bugaboo for them. They are 5-2 in Winnipeg, but the Blue Bombers are just 2-4 straight up on the road this season. It's not exactly what you want to see. They did win on the road at Saskatchewan, but they had to hang on for dear life in the game that Zach Collaros got injured and Chris Strevler took over. And they did beat BC in their last and another. So they have won 2 straight road games. But before that, they were 0-4 on the road to start the year. We'll see how they fare here in this. Their defense is going to be a big challenge here for Trey Ford and this Elks offense. An Elks offense that, look, I've been impressed with their receiving core lately. Geno Lewis is really starting to percolate. Hergy Mayala, Curly Gittens Jr., they've all been good. And they are loaded in the backfield. They go 3 deep at running back with Kevin Brown, with Javon Leake, and with Justin Rankin. It's a very impressive trio of running backs that the Edmonton Elks have. And it's been a large part of taking pressure off McLeod Bethel Thompson. Now you throw in the run element that Trey Ford from the quarterback position can throw at you. And this really could be a fun offense as far as the run game is concerned to watch moving forward. How will that work here against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers is the big question, because the Blue Bombers this season, when you look at their defense, they've been great against the pass. They've been a little suspect against the run, though. And remember, you're going from McLeod Bethel Thompson, who's going to be exclusively a passing quarterback, now to Trey Ford, who, yeah, of course he's going to throw it, but he's going to run it a lot. And a lot more certainly than McLeod Bethel Thompson would. And as much as the Bomber defense overall, the numbers are great. Total yards, they're giving up 337.9 per game, first in the league. Passing yards per game allowed, 238.6. Again, tops in the CFL. But against the run on defense, Winnipeg's 6th in the CFL, giving up almost 100 rushing yards per game. That's a matchup concern for me, for Mike O'Shea and his Blue Bombers here, because this now becomes more of a run-first, run-oriented offense, I think, with Trey Ford at the quarterback spot, as opposed to what it was with McLeod Bethel Thompson for Edmonton at the quarterback spot. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on here in this game. Like I said, I was hoping for a field goal or 3.5 or 4 with Edmonton. We're not getting that here. But I'm not stepping in front of Edmonton. So if I'm betting this game from a side perspective, it's take the small points as home underdogs with the Elks, or the money line for that matter, because they are very capable of winning this game outright off a bye. Although the bye week's been hit or miss this year in the CFL for teams, but they are off a bye week as well. Winnipeg's still only just the 2-4 record on the road. Now they do have to overcome some serious negative series history, because Winnipeg has beaten this team like a drum. 10 straight meetings won by the Winnipeg Blue Bombers against Edmonton. But this is the best Edmonton team during that span. So you have to factor that in. And like I said, for a team that's covered 6 straight, I'm not stepping in front of them. Just like I talked about, it's the reason why, even though I think Toronto's in a decent spot this week against Hamilton, I'm not stepping in front of Hamilton because they've covered 3 straight. These teams that are point spread streakers, I should say, they're not teams I'm stepping in front of. Same thing in the NFL. When a team's covered 5 in a row, I'm not going against them. I'm not, because it's clearly showing that they've been undervalued. And until I see that market correct itself, I'm not going to look for reasons to bet against them. So I would be on Edmonton here if I'm looking at a side 1.5, 2 in this game. Total, Winnipeg's 11-2 to the under this year. They've been a dead nuts under team, an under machine. Their offense has been, plodding at times. They're a very, short to intermediate pass and run the football a lot with Brady Oliveira offense. So they take time off the clock too. It's another reason why they've been a good under team. Now, early in the season, Edmonton was a great over team. Their offense was still pretty solid, but the defense was miserable. Don't look now. The defense is getting a little bit better for Edmonton. They only gave up 16 to BC, 22 to Hamilton, 21 to Montreal, 20 to Calgary, 16 to Calgary. So they haven't given up more than 22 points in 5 straight games. This Elks team is starting to make strides on defense. No question. You see it. They're getting more pass rush. They're doing a better job in coverage down the field in the secondary. I'm seeing them contest balls, contest throws a lot more, be in better position. So this is an improving Edmonton defense. I don't think this is a lock, stock, and barrel over game for me, especially with Edmonton looking a little better on defense. Edmonton, I know their last 2 games against and I was on the over in the 2 Calgary games, but a lot of that was that miserable, horrendous Swiss cheese Calgary Stampeders defense. Winnipeg's got a better defense than Calgary, and don't look now, Edmonton's defense is getting a little bit better. So I'm not as sold on this game going up and over the total necessarily as I was with the Edmonton in their last 2 games against the Calgary Stampeders. All right, there you have it. That is my look at CFL Week 16 here on Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy. Shout out to everyone tuning in. Hit the like button. We appreciate it very much. And a reminder before we get to best bet for CFL Week 16 to wrap up the show, take advantage of this offer. It truly, 1 year all sports, $600. That's $150 off the regular price of $750 at Dub Club. It's on now until NHL opening night, October 8th. So you've got a few weeks available to take advantage of this discount. $600, 1 year all sports at Dub Club. Every play, every bet, and every sport, each and every day. Sides, totals, player props, Dub Club. And again, 1 year all sports, $600 now through to the start of the NHL season. And that, again, is $150 off the regular price. Take advantage of that. And also SoBet. It's been a great best bet run the last month at SoBet. 94 and 79, 54%, 4.8% ROI, plus 1.6 units, $1,600 of profit. Best bets, all sports, last 30 days at SoBet. If you're looking for just a low volume approach, best bets only in all sports, sign up at SoBet, $9.95 per month. All right, best bet for CFL Week 16. This is the week to me. This is the week. Saskatchewan, money line against Calgary. We're not going to screw around with the -2.5. Just give me the money line. -145 is the best price out there. I think this team's focused. They're angry. I like that there's a little piss and vinegar with Corey Mace and the players with practice this week. I think that's a good thing. Positive, not positive, but I think that's good that they're angry. Okay. And this is a beatable Calgary team. For everyone's talking about how Saskatchewan finds ways to lose games. How about Calgary? It's not like they've been a boatload of winning football games lately themselves. This is the spot for Saskatchewan to get right. I think they do on Friday night. Saskatchewan, -145 against Calgary. That is going to be my best bet for CFL Week 16 here on Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy. That's a wrap. Appreciate everyone tuning in. I'm Ian Cameron. Enjoy CFL Week 16. Enjoy the games, and good luck. And we'll be back with you next week for another CFL edition of Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy.